So I want to talk a little bit about why I became a Satanist, and specifically a theistic Satanist, as in someone who definitely does believe that Satan is a real being, and who follows Satan, or Satan's plural, as a real being in their life. This can either be worshiping those beings, or working alongside those beings, working with those beings in your life, but essentially, for me, I honor these beings as a necessary part of the universe, as a part of consciousness, as a part of the stars and the planets and nature, and I believe that Satan and Satan's is another form or force of God and gods. And to me, the way that this force of energy interacts with my brain and makes sense to my brain is as Satan and Satan's, plural. And so I was raised half Christian and half atheist. I was a Christian until around maybe like 8 or 9, and around then is maybe more like 7 or 8, I'm not quite sure. I was deconverted somewhere in childhood around that stretch of time. And then after being deconverted, I was raised as an atheist for the rest of my childhood and the entirety of my teens. So for the entirety of my teenage years, I was being raised as an atheist. And for me, in my personal case, I found being an atheist was for me just as traumatic as being a Christian was. When I was a more evangelical Protestant Christian, I'd been given one set of rules to abide by, one view of the world to abide by, and it was suffocating. And I did not see myself in it, but I followed it because it's all I knew. When I was raised as an atheist, I was taught, because of the type of it that I was in, anti-theism. I was taught that all religion is evil. I was taught that all religious people are just delusional or are somehow supposed to be a threat to me. I was taught that because of all the harm of Christianity, that all other religions are equal to Christianity, and that all theism is just people controlling you, and it's just to be avoided because it's not worth it, and it'll just hurt you. And that's what I was taught when I was an atheist, and for a while, in my teens, that worked for me, but I didn't really see myself in that any more than I had in Christianity. I wasn't really happy as an atheist. In fact, I was expressly miserable. And I was just as miserable in a lot of ways as I had been as a Christian child. And I felt that the form of atheism I was in was equally as self-hating and hating of society, and it just was not healthy at all. And I resent what I was taught by both. I resent what I was taught by both Christianity and atheism. So around 20 is when I started to solidly realize that neither was right for me, but I didn't know what I fell into. I knew that I just knew that I wasn't really an atheist anymore, and that it just wasn't working for me, and not believing in anything is not how I wanted to live my life, and was not fulfilling for me in my life, and something needed to change. So I just started kind of branching out and exploring everything. I started to explore every different thing that I was taught was dangerous, that I was taught was harmful, that I was taught to stay away from. I started to look into Christianity. I started to look into Mormonism. I started to look into cults. I fell into a couple of cults. Luckily, I did get out of those. I actually fell into those much later than when I was 20. I fell into those cults when I was between the ages of 22 to 23. But I got out of both of them, and I will name both cults. One of them was called reality shifting. At least what I was exposed to it when I was in it was definitely a cult, and was definitely damaging to my life, and drove me to some really bad mental states that I would not wish upon anyone. The other cult I was in was, because the first one was an online cult. Reality shifting is an online cult that came out of the 2020 pandemic. I genuinely believe it was a mass trauma response to the 2020 pandemic, and it essentially was teaching and targeting specifically children into young adults, so teenagers as well as people just in Gen Z, so anyone from the ages of like childhood to like 25, or like older people in their 20s. It was made by and for young people, and it was targeting people and telling them that you can just, through faith alone and just willpower, leave your body and go to any world you want, including fictional worlds, and it's all really real, and, you know, that was just extremely unhealthy. I will say, I still have the experience of what I used to believe was reality shifting when I was in that cult. I will say, I do still have the experience of leaving my body and going to other worlds, including fictional worlds. However, I no longer believe that's actually what's happening. I don't believe I'm actually leaving my body. I no longer view it through that lens. I see it as a psychological phenomenon akin to dreaming. I believe it is a sort of controlled dreaming state that I can enter even when my body is awake. And this controlled dreaming state that I enter, I now view through the lens of severe dissociation, as I am someone with a chronic dissociative disability, as well as I view it through the lens of a mental and psychological phenomenon, because, and the reason that I have to view it through that lens is because when I listen to these reality shifters who are telling me that all this stuff is really real and there's infinite other dimensions and it's proven by science and the multiverse, which no, it fucking isn't, but, you know, they take multiverse as fact, essentially, and they say that, well, you are living a million different lives in a million different universes, you can just project yourself into one of those other universes and live there instead of here. And the problem with that is that as someone with severe PTSD from a lifetime of abuse and a severe chronic dissociative disability that literally comes from childhood abuse, that when I believed that, I kind of went fucking insane because, and excuse my language there, but that's how I feel about it in retrospect, because I was spending all my fucking time just imagining myself dating a video game character that I was in love with, and I wasn't living my life here, because I was literally being taught by the reality shifters that I was seeing online, that if you just live there, then you don't have to deal with the pain of living here. Then it doesn't matter what you're going through here, you can just leave it for there. And I think that's honestly reckless, dangerous, stupid, arrogant, egotistical, and it is severely fucking damaging to someone like the person I was when I was in that, who was coming to terms with 2 decades of abuse from someone, and I was escaping that abuse, frankly, or escaping that trauma through just like dissociating to be with some video game character. So because of that, and because of just like I having a lot of really mixed feelings about that and feeling like it was really traumatic, I do view reality shifting as a cult, and I do choose, even though technically I still have those experiences, I choose to see those experiences through a psychological lens. I will say sometimes I use the term astral projection for it, but I also believe that astral projecting is a psychological phenomenon. I believe it's a form of dreaming that can happen even when your body might be not fully asleep. Like, I can do this even when my body is awake, but I do think it's some form of dreaming, and I choose to see it that way, because when I saw it as, oh, I'm really going to these other worlds and doing these things, I literally went insane when I saw it that way, because it was like I was just avoiding my trauma to like go be with the G-Man from Half-Life when I was doing that, and that was not healthy. So anyways, aside from that, I was also I was going to talk about Theistic Satanism, and I went on a whole rant about reality shifting. That's okay. The other cult I was in is called Atonism. Why did I join Atonism? So I joined Atonism, and I specifically joined as originally, Atonism doesn't really exist anymore, but I was part of a group of about 5 people at the time who were trying to reinstate the ancient Egyptian cult of the Aten, and we were trying to bring it back, like this ancient sun-worshipping religion from Egypt. We were trying to bring it back and make a new version of it, and the people there was 2 cult leaders, a husband and a wife, and I was one of the people, and my ex was also in this, and they had groomed this fucking poor girl to also be in it, And so there was 5 people, and we were trying to reinstate the cult of the ancient Egyptian cult of the Aten, and it was really fucking bad. And this was an in-person cult. Like, I was fucking snorting ketamine through a dollar bill with these people, and like, they were telling me that we were going to be a new world order, and that we were going to like have like overtake the US government and all this shit. And I believed it at the time. I believed it. And they were like, yeah, we're going to teach people to worship the sun as God, and it'll free people's minds from the slavery of capitalism. And now I think it's all fucking bullshit, because how the hell are you going to be freeing people from capitalism while you're like on some commune or whatever, trying to like control what people eat and the things they have access to, still under capitalism? Like, that doesn't fucking work. Like, how the hell are you going to be telling me that I'm going to be helping people free them from capitalism with this religion that I used to be a part of, when you can't even free yourself? And like that's the thing, is like, sorry, so anyways, suffice to say, I have experience with cults. I'm glad to be out of those. Why did I become a Theistic Satanist? Why have I stayed a Theistic Satanist for, at this point, about 2 years? Because I started using that label specifically because technically I've had experience with demons since at least the age of 20. Debatably longer if I want to get into a more philosophical, psychological stance on it, but I'm not going to do that. For actually using the term demons, actually interacting with demons, I've been doing that since I was 20, but I wasn't labeling myself a Theistic Satanist until New Year's of 2023, because that's when I did my Wizard's initiation ceremony, and that's when I stopped hiding my belief system and just keeping it as an internal thing. New Year's of 2023 is when I felt like I was confident enough to start talking to other people about it and to start letting myself express my belief system outwardly, rather than it just being an internal thing. If I had to describe my current spiritual practice right now, I would say I spend a significant portion of my spiritual practice as a Theistic Satanist having sex with demons. Frankly, I don't know how else to put that. That's just as blunt as I can be with it. I am in a romantic partnership with many different demons, many of whom are in the Ars Goetia, but not all of whom. And I would say that I have a sort of symbiotic relationship with these demons, where I exchange my energy with them, they exchange energy with me, and I gain knowledge through sexual relations with these demons, and this knowledge helps me to better myself in my life. And with this knowledge, I can choose what I then do with that knowledge, and how I use the knowledge that they give me and the wisdom that they give me to better myself in my life. And this is sort of how it is for me. It's different for everyone. There is no unifying, overarching community or order or body for Theistic Satanism as a whole. Every Theistic Satanist is going to be a little bit different. And frankly, I feel like I wouldn't want to be a Theistic Satanist, or I'd probably stop using the label if there was an overarching community, body, or order, because I find that antithetical and the opposite of everything Theistic Satanism represents and means to me. And I also think that hierarchy inherently goes against, or at least like, listening to someone and obeying someone in and of itself, or seeing someone as like the grand authority on something, kind of goes against what Theistic Satanism even is to me. So and what Satan is to me as well. So I was not satisfied when I was a Christian child. I was not satisfied when I was an anti-theist teen. And I found that going on this spiritual journey of the last 5 years, Theistic Satanism is where I personally belong and fit in. I find it that how it is self-driven and a self-controlled path is very much compatible with me, as well as, since my means of magic is actually chaos sorcery, I find that Theistic Satanism for me as a chaos sorcerer is very compatible with my approach to chaos sorcery. And I feel that Satan to me is a figure who I know by a few different names. Among those names there is Belial, Samael, Osmodeus, and Leviathan, but most often lately, it was gonna be Samael, King Payman, King Belial, Osmodeus, and see if what would be, and I have a personal, maybe I shouldn't bring him up actually. those are probably going to be the four main ones that I'm like lately, but it's mostly Samael, King Balial, and King Payman that I'm like probably the most interacting with on the most frequent basis. These are the Satans that work the best with me, and I love all of them, and I actually view myself as spiritually married to the three that I brought up, King Balial, King Payman, and Samael. I actually am spiritually married to those three, and they mean a lot to me, and I literally view them as family, or as found family to me as well. I almost feel like using the word God doesn't express like what they really are to me in my life. I feel like found family would be a closer term for it, or like husbands would be a closer term for it, and teachers. But yeah, they're very important in my life, and I find that for me, with my background, Theistic Satanism has worked, and it's continued to be what I've stuck to in my life and what is helping me spiritually.